this computer. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna implement this JICAN anime API that I have the documentation up here for with async redux. We're gonna get like a list of different shows from a search form, movie shows, whatever it may be, and then we can, if we have time, we'll add the functionality. Actually, click on those, get the individual characters, episodes, on and on and on. You really get carried away with some of these free APIs. So with that, let's get started. Let me give you initially what I have. So just real quick, this was just a create React app that the only thing I built was a search form function real fast. So if you look at this app running, which we will start right now because it's not running. Yeah, help if I make it run so I can show you guys, right?
It looks like just a header with a button.
That's about it. It looks like that. So yeah, single input. We're going to use that single input. And what that's going to do is that's going to populate our search query for this API. So if you go through this API and see how it works, like read it from top to bottom, there's a specific way to get initial data to request, and you have to search it. This API won't give you like a list of like every anime show, kind of sorted at 20 at a time, like you would see in some other APIs. You actually have to search for it. And I can find that portion of it. So that's example for characters. Here's a request schema. So key value. Yeah. So to initially use this, you have to use this key value pair, which the Q is a query parameter and a string. And it's just UTF-8 characters and percentage. And what that targets is it tells the API, hey, search for this stuff and tell me what, return me what you find. That string I actually saved up here already, so I had it. And you can see where it's just a search. It says anime question Q equals, and then I got a little template literal string boilerplated in here for a search parameter. And what we do is we just put whatever, like if you want to find Naruto, you just type Naruto into that search input and it hits this endpoint and returns all the relevant information to Naruto or whatever else you might want to find. So to start this off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create our first action. And I'm going to create our first action because I want to see what the data looks like. It's all about the data. So you don't want to start building like components and all this stuff for your application unless either you built the API yourself or you know exactly what you're going to get back. So until you know that for a fact, you just want to get it and see it so you know how to build out the application. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to build an action. And we'll call this action, we'll call it search anime. Why not? That makes sense, right? That's going to equal a function. Now I'm going to make this already automatically. I'm going to make this an asynchronous, like a thunk function, just for the simple fact I know I'm going to have to use that anyway. And our first parameter, so I'm not going to put anything in there yet. I'm just going to go over it. So a thunk function is a function that returns a function. Looks something like this. This is the shorthand version. But what it's saying is, here's a function called search anime that returns a anonymous function that is going to do some stuff. So our second parameter is basically dispatch. And where dispatch comes from Redux. Redux, when it runs the middleware of thunk, sees this function come in and says, oh, here's dispatch, run this and let me know what objects you get back and I will dispatch them to the reducer. So you can almost think of thunk as like the bouncer at the door of the nightclub. He's checking objects at the door. And if I got an object, it's going to run right past the middleware bouncer. It's going to go right to the reducer. But the moment it sees a function in return like this, it's going to say, whoa, wait a minute. Here, let me give you dispatch and you just stand over in the corner and run until you start showing me the objects that I can let in. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah.
Cool. All right. So that's pretty much what we're going to build out here. Now, in order to do this properly, we have to have a series of action strings. And the purpose of an action string, which I'll type one out here, we're just going to say, we'll call this one loading. and it's all capital letters, and it's going to be equal to a string that looks exactly the same. And this is to help the developer. That's the only purpose this serves. This serves no purpose in the code as far as running faster or what the user is going to see. This eliminates errors and bugs. And how it does that is that a type or like a switch case in a reducer uses a string value. And if you use raw string values all over the place and you mistype one of those values, you'll never get an error in the console. Everything's going to seem like it spools up and runs fine, except for that specific function's not going to work. And you're not going to know why. You got nothing in the console telling you why. Nothing's happening. It's like, why doesn't it work when you just forgot the D in loading in the case and it never hit it? So if you use the variable naming like this, if you mistype the loading variable, you get a big old nasty error saying, hey, this is undefined. I don't know what this is. And it lets you know, hey, I got a typo right away. So that's the purpose in this. I sound all right to you guys?
Yeah, you sound good.
I heard a little bit of an echo. I was just curious.
Yeah, maybe just because Steve isn't not on mute.
Ah, all right. All right, so let's get going here. Let's create this function. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call that dispatch object of loading. So I'm going to say dispatch. And when this function fires, the first thing I want to do is put my app in a loading state. I want to get it into a loading state until I find out whether my API call was successful or not. So we're going to dispatch an object. It's going to have a type. And we're going to give it that type of that loading string I just created. And that's all I'm going to give it. Most of the time, loading is a Boolean value. It's either loading or it's not. So it's either true or false, which you can handle directly in the reducer. There's no need to add a payload or any data to that dispatch object. Just let it know, hey, I'm loading. And then you can handle it from there. And after that, we're going to make our Axios request. So let's go ahead and import Axios. I can't spell tonight. So I'm going to say axios.get. And we're going to get for this string right here that I put up here. Man, God. I work on a Windows machine all day. I keep pushing control copy on my Mac and it doesn't work well. Okay, you'll see that I've already got this template string for the search parameter. We have to give this function some data, some external data from our input over here to work. And where that comes in is this first parameter. So I'm going to make that search param. So when I'm typing in here and I call this function, I'm going to pass the data that's in here to this parameter. It's going to put it in the URL. Redux is going to give me this parameter for my reducer and for the store, which is going to run all of my dispatch objects. So let's see, we'll go ahead and we'll just do our .then, the happy path. Let's see what the happy path gives us. For now, I'm just going to console log it. I'm really big on console log and responses. Always want to know that data before you start setting things to certain things. We might get an error. So we're going to want to console log that as well if we get it. And I always like to wrap that in an object. And the reason why I do that is if you just console log the error, you can say console.error too, and it'll give you the message. But if you console log the error, it'll give you like the status and just the message real quick. It won't give you any much more information. When you wrap it in an object, it shows up in the console as a whole object. When you open it up, there's all kinds of information in there to help you diagnose what happened. You got the request headers, you got the responses. You can take a look at the actual data that came across and what you sent and what you retrieved. It gives you a lot more information to help you figure out what's going on. So that's my theory behind that. So I'm going to export both of these because I'm going to be using them somewhere else. And where I'm going to be using them is my search form. That's where I'm initially going to hit this to see what I get.
I have a question about your .then and dot catch.
Hmm.
How come in dot then you have result function and then an object, it looks like with the console log. But for the error, the dot catch, there's no curly braces
Oh,
before console log.
that's just because I know I'm gonna put more in here. They don't have to
Oh,
be
okay.
there. This is called an implicit return. So if you write like a fat arrow function and it's gonna be like a one line method and it's gonna stay on one line of the code, like on line 13, you don't have to type the word return. You don't have to use curly braces. You don't even have to use parentheses. It's just gonna return it.
Okay,
So-
so that'll just give you that error object and that's all you need. But when you do the dot then, you're gonna get a lot more data.
Not so much get, but I'm planning on doing more in here. Like if I wanted to right now, for the sake of looking consistent, I can do this and it'll do the same thing.
Gotcha.
All right, let's go tie this in and get it working. So now that I have this action written, I got to do my initial implementation of Redux. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go boilerplate out a reducer with some very, very basic state, just to get it running, tie it into Redux and connect this all so I can hit this action and see what I have to maybe change that state, manipulate it and make it, better before we go further. So I'll just go into this reducer file and I'm gonna create a reducer. First, I'm gonna create an initial state. I'm gonna say const init state. That's gonna equal an object. State is always an object with a reducer. So always keep that in mind. Don't ever set your initial state to an array. If you need an array of data, create an object, define a key, and define the array as the value. So I know I'm already gonna have a loading state. So I'm gonna declare that. And I'm gonna say my initial loading state is gonna be false. I'm gonna have, I don't know, some data. Right now, we'll just leave it like that. We'll say that's gonna be an empty array. And then we might have an error. And I'm gonna make that empty string. Looks good for starting initial state. It kind of hits the 3 states of our state machine our app's gonna live in. Either a loading state, a successful state, or an error state. So this is subject to change depending on what our API data looks like and how we want to manipulate it. So now I'm going to write my reducer. We're going to export. This application's only going to need one reducer. The sprint challenge is only going to need one reducer. So there's no real reason to write a combined reducers method or bring that even in from React Redux and create those extra files when you don't need them. So we're going to make this kind of mirror that. We're just going to use one simple reducer. So I'm going to say export const. We'll call this the anime reducer. It's going to equal a function and it's going to be a JavaScript function. Now our JavaScript function here takes in 2 parameters. Anybody know what they are? Putting you on the spot.
It's state in action.
That's right. State and action. State is our first parameter. Action is our second one. All right. And to get, anybody know how to set a default value to a parameter in JavaScript? Like if I want to set a default value to state, how would I do that as a parameter?
Do state equal to initial state?
That's right. And what that does when you do this is it says, hey, when I call this function, if I don't pass a parameter here, then this becomes my parameter for state. But if I do pass a value for this parameter of state here, then I won't use initial state. I'll run whatever functionality I have to. So that's how you just default a parameter in JavaScript. I know that's been a confusing topic in the past, but yeah, it's real commonplace. So like if you had like a Boolean value, like, my anime reducer type thing, or my function runs, and if I pass it a string, I want it to, parse the string into an array and add commas to each one. But if I don't pass it anything, default that to foo and to show me foo, and you can do that same thing. All right, so inside of a reducer function, we're going to write a switch statement, which a switch is like a just a different way to write if else if. It's pretty much what it is. We're going to switch on the action, which is our second parameter. The type key that's in that action object is going to hold what we're going to switch against. And then we're going to create different cases for that. But the first thing I just want to do is we always have to have a default case. The default case, the purpose behind, excuse me, that is in case you don't hit any of these, like let's say this action type doesn't match any of your cases, it's going to fall to this default and it's going to return that. So if you don't have a default and you initially fire up the app, or you accidentally call the reducer somewhere in your application with no intention of updating the state, it'll throw a big error unless it has a default value to return something. So here we're just going to return state. And that's all we're going to give it right now. That's all we really need to make this thing run. All right, let's go implement this into, we're going to go to index.js. This is where we're going to bring everything in to create our store, add our reducer, and add our middleware to use that reducer. So like everybody's a little different on what packages they like to use with Redux. Like I think Jacob was teaching you guys about the DevTools middleware and using the DevTools. I was always a big fan of Logger. I like Logger. It just looks simple and easy. Or you don't have to use anything at all, truthfully. So I'm going to use Logger for this in case you guys haven't seen it, because I think it's really cool. And we're going to implement that with our middleware when we create our store. So to create our store, we need a couple things. We're going to need a provider. That's going to come from React Redux. And the difference between coming from Redux and React Redux is whether it's a React component or not. So provider is a React component. It's going to go into JSX. When you use connect, that's a React specific component. It's a higher order component that kind of wraps whatever component you have to, hijack its props. And then there's things that live like outside of like the React ecosystem that come directly from Redux. So like create, store, and apply middleware are two. So we got create, store, and apply middleware. They both come from Redux because they are just JavaScript. There is no React involved with those. And then I'm going to import my thunk. That's my middleware. I need to make that asynchronous call. So we'll get that from Redux thunk. And I'm going to get my logger from the Redux logger. All right, so now I think I have everything I need. Oh, I'm missing one more thing. Let me grab my reducer. So I need the anime reducer. I'm gonna get that from my reducers. So that'd be my state folder, my reducers, there's my anime reducer. Now I have everything. First thing I'm gonna do is create a store. And if I'm going too fast, speak up and stop me. I'm happy to, I like being interrupted. So just want to put that out there. So const store. That's going to equal the create store method from Redux. This takes roughly 2 arguments that we'll always deal with. The first one is your reducer. If you're using combined reducers, it would be like the root reducer that returns out of that method goes here. In our case, it's going to be the anime reducer. And then the next one is the any middleware that you have, which we have, we're just going to call the apply middleware. We're going to give it the thunk, and we're going to give it the logger. And that's it for this one. Any questions on that? Going once, going twice.
Technically called like a variable, like a store variable.
It's exactly what I'm doing. I think in Jacob's lecture, he was doing it in like the reducer file where you combine the reducers, but you could do it pretty much anywhere. It's just a variable called store. It just represents the Redux store, and it's assigned to this create store method. So this could live like in my reducers if I wanted to, and I just have to export it here. But I always looked at it as like, why write it there to export it when I could just put it right here? You know, it's kind of like there's 100 ways to do this. None of them are technically wrong. I try and do it as simple as possible when I do them. So, and this is also the way I was taught originally, was you just put the store here. But yeah, you can put it anywhere that makes sense to you, truthfully. So let's, our next step is to provide this store to our app. And to provide the store to the app, we're gonna do exactly what that method's called, the provider. The provider provides to our app. So the provider takes one prop called store, and we're gonna set that equal to our variable of store. All right, now we have that. I'm gonna open up my inspector here. We might not get anything yet. Let's see what happens when I refresh. Yeah, so we're not activating the Redux reducer yet to get any kind of state or store. Excuse me, because we haven't connected it to anything yet. So I'm gonna go connect it to my search form. I know that's the that action that I created. I'm gonna have to hit that with my search form. So I'm just gonna connect it there and hit it there and see what we get. So search form, we're gonna import our connect method. We want to connect this to React Redux. Or we're getting it from React Redux. We want to connect to Redux is basically what this is. I'm going to come down here to the bottom and we're going to connect this. It's a higher order method. So it gets written a little kind of funky, which is this double parentheses method. This is basically this higher order method taking control of our search form, saying, hey, I've got control of this now, and I'm going to inject props into this. So connect takes two parameters mainly. The first one is like your map state to props, or basically just a function. Your second parameter is an object where you put all of your actions. You could shorthand that object, you can longhand it, you could declare a variable that's assigned to an object and put them in and pass it in. But technically all connect is looking for is a function for the first parameter and an object for the second one. So let's get our action. Import our anime action. It's called search anime, isn't it? Search anime from // we're gonna get it from our state folder, our actions, yeah, right there. And then I'm gonna come down here. I don't need state for this app yet, so my first value is gonna be null. I don't need anything for the map state to props. However, I am gonna want to use the dispatch with my search anime action. So I'm gonna pass that into an object like that. Now, if that looks a little confusing to you, you could always down here, you can say const map dispatch to props equals an object. And you can say search anime is search anime, and then pass that variable in here, which is going to be doing pretty much the same thing. But once again, there's a number of ways to do this. Do it doesn't confuse you in what you understand, and you'll be fine. I personally like just passing the object to keep it simple method. So we have this search anime method that we're going to invoke, but we have to hit this. And you can see I already boilerplated this one in a little bit. And what happens when we pass this into connect? Connect takes this function. When it hits here, it says, okay, I am watching this in my Redux store now to see if I need to do anything with the reducer. And then I'm also going to give this method to search form via props. So to access this method, I have to get it from props. So you see it's props dot, and that's not supposed to be find anime series. That's even completely wrong. Let's say props dot search anime. And we're gonna pass that our form value. So our value that's coming from the input that we're carrying in this local state right here is what we're gonna pass. Now, there's another common mistake that a lot of people make. They'll just call it like this. They'll say, I'm gonna say search anime. I'm importing it right here. This should work, right? This will not work. You will not get an error. Your code will look like it runs, but you will never hit that API call. It will not dispatch to the reducer. It's like it just does nothing because Redux doesn't see it happening because it's only injecting it through props. So if you ever have a situation where you're like, this is supposed to work and it's not working, look there. I bet you find it. So let's search for something. Anybody got an anime show that they want to search for? I'll pick one. Let's type in dragon. Let's see if we get any Dragon Ball Z stuff. I'm gonna click the search action. And you can see in the console here, if you guys haven't used Logger before, this is what Logger shows you. It shows you your previous state, so what state was like, the action taken, and the new state, what it's gonna be. And then you can see my console log of our data is right here. So we have a data key, and data results has an array of 50. It found 50 of these shows here. And it's got all kinds of cool stuff in it. So it's got whether it's airing or not, number of episodes, an image URL. It's got all kinds of stuff in here. So now we could change our initial state to think like, okay, we can maybe call this like, you know, shows, I guess, and have it as an array. So let's go change that. Instead of some data, we're gonna call this call it anime shows. And that's gonna be an empty array. So now we're gonna go into our action. We know this is successful right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and create my dispatch, and I'm gonna bring these curly braces back so it looks a little less confusing. And here I'm gonna dispatch another object. This is gonna be my successful object. Ooh, that wasn't supposed to hit enter. So here, this is gonna have a type, and it's gonna be something, and it's gonna have a payload that is going to be our response. Now I look over here because this payload represents this data now. So I want response.data results will give me my array of data that I need. All right, now the type, I'm gonna declare another action string. So I'm gonna say export const. We'll call this search success. That's gonna equal the same thing. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna give it an error one. Export const. Call this error. All right, and we're gonna put basically just pop them right in here. It's gonna be search success. And then here where I'm console logging this error object, I'm gonna go ahead and open this up too. And in here, I'm going to pass, you know what, let's see if we can make this error and see what our error object looks like. So I'm just gonna take the E off of that. And we'll hit a search of that, bang. I should get an error. No, it said it was okay. Why? What'd I get? Oh, I never refreshed it. I was like, I doubt that worked. Yeah, there we go. So I want to see an error. And you could see this error that I console logged here is now the object. Before you would just kind of see something like this with this error saying request failed with status code 400. But now that it's wrapped in an object, we open that up. This is all the information that is actually in that error. So you can see the configuration here. You know, it accepts it. You see what the headers that were passed in case, you know, you might be forgetting a token, don't know, you can check that. The URL that you're going to, there's just a lot of useful information in here when you do this. And if I go into the response object, this looks like your normal response. It's got a data key and a message. So I kind of like that message. We're going to use that. That's what we're going to dispatch in here. So I'm going to say dispatch. We're going to dispatch a type of error. And we're going to give it a payload of the error dot response dot data dot message. And that's what I'm going to send that way. And how I got that information was just digging through the console on logging this stuff out and knowing that's what I want. So I got that. I'm just going to comment out these console logs so the terminal doesn't get too cluttered up. And I'm going to go into my reducer and I'm going to start bringing these cases in and creating them with the action strings and all that groovy stuff. So we're going to import. Oh, we're going to import this. Import from, let's see, we're in there. We got to go up a level to actions, animate actions. And we want loading, search success, and error for now. And I'm gonna come down here, I'm gonna make some cases for those. So we're gonna say case loading. What's gonna happen when loading happens? We're gonna return a copy of state. So always keep that in mind. The key to a reducer, what makes it a reducer, is it always returns a copy of state. It never manipulates the existing state. That's what keeps it pure and a reducer. So we're gonna say dot state. And then what do I want to change in here? I want to change my loading key. I'm going to change my loading key to true. So that's all that needs to happen in loading. Any questions to this point? Nope. All right, I'll keep going. I'm going to make another case. This case is going to be, we'll make this our error case. So this will be error. And we're going to return a copy of state. And here we're going to set our loading key back to false because we're no longer loading. If we hit this error, we're not loading anymore. We are broken. So we got to let everybody know that it's broken by adding the action dot payload to the error key. So just to give you a quick recap of the flow of what's happening here. When I click this button, we're in our search form. All right. It fires off this action through Redux connect method. So it comes to this action. Redux sees it, the middleware thunk sees this and says, okay, dispatch is running. This parameter is already set. Go ahead and run. Let me know what you get back. Then we're going to say, okay, we're starting our asynchronous call. We are going to dispatch. This is a dispatch object with a type of loading. This object, when it gets to the reducer, is action. It's the second parameter. So the second parameter, even though we named it action, you can name this anything you want, but it's coming into your reducer as the second parameter. So we're going to say, what do we want to do here? Well, we want to hit our type of loading. So if you go over here, you see we're switching on action.type. So it's going to find the case that matches. It's like, oh, look, there's a match. I'm going to run this. So bam, it runs that. So it resets our state to loading. All right, then we come back over here. Then we're going to run our Axios call. We're doing the get. I'm going to fix this typo real quick. we're doing the GET request and stuff, and then it comes back successful. All right, we hit this successful block, our promise resolved. We're gonna dispatch again. This time, this action object is gonna hit success, and our payload is gonna be the data. Here, we haven't created a case yet. So if this were to happen, it would go through and say, loading doesn't match, error doesn't match. Oh, I hit the default. Let me just return the initial state or the existing state of the application at that time. That's what would happen. That's why that default's there. And then our error state, if we catch an error, it's going to say, oh, type error. All right, another action object. Here's the data. It's going to go through the middleware, hit our reducer. That action is going to find this error. It's going to say, okay, I'm no longer loading. Let's go back to false. I have an error. So there's expecting some kind of user interface that's going to display this error. And our error is in the payload key of our action object, which we go over here. You see there's our payload key and there's our data. Any questions on that? Going once, going twice. All right, let's create our success state. Let's get some data in our state. So case search success. We're gonna return a copy of state. And our loading is also gonna end up false again. And then we're gonna set our anime shows to our action.payload. Cool, so now I'm gonna clear this console, refresh the page, and we're gonna see what happens. I wanna see my logger show me my state change. So I'm gonna search for Dragon, we'll search for Naruto, I believe that's a show. I'm gonna click this search. And you can see how that asynchronous action works live. You saw the previous state, we hit that type loading, and it showed us our next state. If you look, our loading is true. And you notice that took a minute. And then the success message hit in our logger. We got our previous state where loading was true. Our action was search success. Our payload is an array of 50. So now our new state is false, and our anime shows is that array of 50, just like we planned. Any questions on that? Let's display some data. Let's make something. Let's start by, I'm gonna create a new component. I'm gonna call this the anime show card.js RC, this is React functional component, and we're gonna return some things out of here. So let's take a look at one of these objects and see what we got that we can play with. So we have an airing key. Does it have the main name? You would hope so, right? Yeah, title. So let's create like an H3 or an H2. And this is going to be like the title. So we'll boilerplate this out. We'll say this is going to be coming from props. So we'll just call it title for now. And we'll actually declare this all in props. We'll get this set up because we know this is what we're going to be passing. So const say title equals props. That'll make that happy. And let's see what else we can grab out of here. It's got a score and a rating. Oh, we got an image URL. We need that. Everybody likes pictures. Let's see, we have episodes. We can grab. That synopsis looks a little large. I don't think we need to mess with that. Let's do the rated and the score. Let's grab that stuff. So we got a title there. I might create another div. And here I'm gonna put an image tag, and I'm gonna set the source equal to Image URL. And if this looks like total crap, I am doing this on the fly. So we'll have to see what it looks like before we do any styling. Let's give it an alt attribute. And we'll give the alt attribute the title. Let's see, we'll get out of that div. We'll come down here, we'll create some p tags. We'll call this episodes. And we'll make that the episodes information. Make another one. I'll call this rating. This will be what the show is rated. And then we'll have last one we'll make for now is going to be score. And we'll display that score. All right, so we have all that. Props doesn't exist yet because we haven't done anything with it. So I'm gonna go into app.js. Here you can see I've got my title, my search form. I think I kind of want to leave that search form there, even after the shows show up, just so we can, type something else in without having to route it. So I'm gonna do something underneath here. And what I'm gonna do is, first thing I'm gonna do actually is I have to connect app to Redux so I can get that array of 50 shows. Excuse me. I need to get this stuff. So if I want to do anything with it here, I got to connect it. So let's import connect from React Redux. I come down here to my app. Connect. Give it the higher order control. And now I need to create a function. Now, I like to actually write this function out. I have seen some people where they actually do it shorthand writing connect, where they just literally arrow this out and do their map state to props that way. That's another one that's personal preference. I'm going to call this map state. It's going to be a function. It's going to take in a state parameter. And then we're going to return stuff. So right now we're just going to return state. We're going to take a look at what that looks like. So to do that, we're going to give connect the map state for the first parameter. So now it has it, and that's going to put that in props. So I'm just going to add props, and I'm going to console log them. I want to make sure that my props are in this component before I do anything, which should be all of state at this point. So we'll see the logger hit. We'll see all kinds of stuff happen. And that'll happen. You can see right now, I already have state. I see it. Loading's false, our errors there, our anime shows are empty. So now I can kind of destructure this out a little bit. I could say anime shows is going to be state dot anime shows. That's all I really need right here. And I might need loading. That might come in handy later if I do a spinner. We'll see if we have time to do that. We'll see how it goes. So I have those there. So if I save this again, when this reruns and we refresh, you can see now my props is just anime shows and loading with my dispatch object that I'm getting from here that we're not using. So I have access to that state. So if I typed in like dragon and hit search, you can see my state hit right here with the asynchronous call went true, then went false. Our anime shows we have 50 in the array. So let's map over those. So I'm going to say props dot anime shows dot map. We're gonna have a for each show. We are going to return a anime show card. And in that show card, we're going to say show equals show. And this is not going to work yet because I got to go into my Anime show card, and I'm gonna change the way this is written a little bit. Or actually, you know what? It'd be easier just to do right here. Props dot show. So we'll save that. We'll come back to app, save this. And hey, it's like magic. Oh, I forgot the key. It's gonna get mad at me because of the key. So key equals, what unique key do we want to give this? Does that show have an ID? Type, title, score. Oh, it's got a mal ID. We'll use that. That looks unique. MAL underscore ID. Oh, it's gonna be showed up. Gotta keep React happy. All right. So let's refresh. We've got nothing. We can ditch this console log now. We know that works. Refresh it one more time, and we'll take a look at how cheesy this may look. I'll type in Naruto and hit search. Hey, that actually don't look that bad. What do you guys think?
Cool.
So we got the title, the image. I mean, we could add some things to this. So like if we wanted to style it, we could say this new file. Actually, you know what? I could probably just do that right in the CSS. So let's give this like a little border. Anime show card. I'm just gonna create a div here. I'm gonna give it a class name. Class name equals anime show card. Let's come to app CSS. A show card. Border. I don't know. 2 pixels. Solid black. That's a little insane, right? It's stacked heavy. Let's give this a first app has to have a width. 100%. Now we're getting into some styling fun real quick. We're gonna give this a width like 70%. See what this looks like. Ooh. All right, we gotta fix that too. So margin 0 auto. See if that puts him in the middle. That did not. Oh, I know why. So display flex and justify content. Center. Oh wait, no wait. I want it in a column. So flex direction column. Align items center. There, that's better. Here we're gonna give this some margin top. I don't know, like 20 pixels. Space them out a little bit. Give it a border radius of like 1 rem. Make it round. Some box shadow. 2 pixels, 2 pixels, 5 pixels, black. See what that looks like. A little shadow on it. Let's change the background color. Background color to something light. Corn silk. What's that look like? Hey, not bad, huh? I'm not the most design savvy person in the world. So any questions on that? That is async redux in a nutshell, other than like post requests and stuff like that. Are we still there?
I'm
Hello?
here. I'm just busy taking notes.
Oh, okay. My headset just randomly shut off. I was like, what happened? Is it broken? So yeah, let's see, what time is it? Oh, we've been at this less than an hour. We can do a little more. Let's have a little more fun. Let's make like a little click method on this. For when we click on it, we can like see the show details. How's that sound? Sound like fun? So we can hit this other part of this API because we will have the ID. So if we look at our API, we can go like examples, animate 1 episodes. So we'll have that ID. That's the mal ID that we put in the key. So we can make like an on click and route to another component. So let's do that. Let's set that up. So our anime show card right here. We can just add an on click method to this div, I believe. And we'll have that just do some stuff. We'll create a thing here. Just gonna see const handle click equals a function. It's gonna do something. And we're gonna say insert action here and then route. So let's do that. So we'll say on click handle click. All right. Let's comment this out so we don't get no errors. Let's go create the action for this. So I'm gonna go to my anime actions and I'm gonna say export const. We'll call this show details. And that's gonna equal a function that's gonna take in, not sure what we need to take that in yet, but the other parameter is gonna be dispatch. We know that. And here we go. And of course, we're gonna be, I always boilerplate this in, because if not, I forget. We're gonna have a type of loading. We know this is an asynchronous call, so we might as well just put it in there. Get it out of the way. All right, so let's take a look at what this is. So we have this same string here. I'm gonna copy that. And I'm gonna create my axios.get. Put it into backticks. Start with that. So it looks like anime slash $ curly braces. There's an ID here. And we want show details. Actually, this might not be show details. We might rename this like show episodes. So we can get characters, staff, episodes, news, pictures, videos, stats. Yeah, well, I mean, what do you guys want to get? You want to get the characters?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. So I'm gonna add the extension for characters underscore staff. And that should give us a list of character and staff members. But we need to pass a parameter of ID. So this is gonna represent that show ID. And we're gonna have a dot then response. Let's open this up, console log it. And then our dot catch is gonna, man, having a hard time typing tonight. There's gonna be an error. And it's gonna pretty much be exactly the same. All the APIs tend to use the same convention once they start. So it's gonna have a type error and a payload that is going to be the error dot response dot data dot message. All right. So now that I think of this, this is gonna be like a separate collection of data in our reducer, right? So like if we look at our reducer now, we're just carrying an array of shows, our loading state and our error state. We need to make another place to hold this. I mean, sometimes you could say you can make another reducer. I think that's a little bit overkill for what we're doing. Normally, when you're making multiple reducers, you'll have like a global app state reducer that will carry all of your global app functionalities, like your loading states, any kind of spinner data that might be there, error data. And then you'll have like a user reducer that holds all of your user data. And then like you would have like in our case, we'd have like an anime reducer that holds everything anime related. And then let's say we built out the manga portion of this, we'd have a manga reducer with all the information involved that. So you really want to keep it generalized and grouped together. You shouldn't be creating a reducer for each different little slice of state. That's just going to make it more confusing. So here I'm going to put show details. Show details, which I'm going to declare initially as an empty object. And I'm going to come back over to my actions and I'm going to say I got a search success action. So I'm going to say export const. I'll call this details success. Let's set that equal to details success. And that's what I'm going to use for my successful response here. Once I tie this in and make it work. So now that I have this, I want to connect it. So my anime show card, this is my card component that I'm going to put a click method on that's going to return the details. So if I click on one of these, I want to see the details. So we got to connect that to Redux and we're going to do that right now. So we're going to import connect. React Redux. We're export defaulting this up here. I'm going to cut that out and put it down here. And we're going to export connect. And it's going to be the anime show card. Now I don't need any state here because this is a mapped component. So it's getting its state already through props as it runs through the array from the parent. But I do need access to dispatch. So I'm going to need that object and I'm going to have to import that in for my actions. So here, what did I call that thing? Show details. That's what we're going to import. Oh, wrong one. Show details from / state actions, anime actions. I'll come down here. We'll insert that in here. Now I will have that in props as well as here. I like to, now everybody's different once again. When I destructure something out of props like this, I like to keep all of my variables, my constants like this, but functions that live in props, I like to call them directly out of the props object. It helps keep them separated so they're not confusing for me. You guys can do it any way you choose. So here I'm going to say props dot anime show card no. Props dot show details. So props dot show details is going to run. And then after that, we're going to redirect probably by router somewhere. But for right now, we're just going to kick this off and see what happens. So we will log. We'll take a look in our console to see what we're logging. Let's type in dragon search. We got some dragon stuff. When I click, does it blow up? Oh, I never passed the ID. See, I got my error. And if you look, my action error type showed up. And my message is there. So hey, that's working. That's beautiful. Yay. Error is populated. Let's fix that. So I have to pass an ID in here. Now that ID, I need to get from the show. So that would be the show dot. Actually, that would be, let's grab that constant out of here. Let's take a look at that array, make sure I don't mess that up. And it shows array, show me the first one. It's mal_ID. That's what I need. So let's grab that out of here. And I grab that, and that's what I'm gonna pass into the show details. And now let's see if it works. Clear. Dragon. We'll click the first one. Bad request. Why is it bad? Please double check the request. Did I miss something in the docs? Anime 225 character staff. Let's go check the docs. See what I broke. Anime ID. Take a look at my action. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, so we're not searching anymore. So it's just /anime/ID. So let's try that. Refresh. I don't know, Naruto. Click on one. Ooh, it worked. Shouldn't act surprised, right? And I got characters. Look at all this data I just got back. I got characters and staff. So that's cool. Nobody really ever wants to know who made the thing. So we'll probably just access that characters array in our show details. And we could change the way our state is to make more sense of that now that we see the data and know what we're getting back. So request hash, 200 characters. Wow, that's cool. That's a lot. So let's go to our anime reducer. I'm gonna change this from show details to show detail. Do I get anything else with that? No. That's kind of a bummer. What's in that object? Does the character have their stuff? Name, role. Ah, okay. So we might have to get a little creative with this to make it look right. You know what? For now, we're just gonna populate this with the characters. So I'm gonna open this up. Show details is gonna have characters. Just gonna be an empty array. And then I'm gonna add the things I want in here. So I know I want a title. It's gonna be an empty string because I'm gonna combine these two data sets is what I'm gonna do. So like we have Naruto right here, right? And that's all I really want to do to separate it out for now. I want to carry that title over. So I have that. Let's go to our action. Here, I'm going to change this to where not only do I get the ID, but I'm going to get the title as well. And then I'm going to come back over here to my show card where I call this. I'm going to pass the title of that show that I clicked on when I click on this so I can use it in my next list. So, and if I'm getting confusing, let me know. I'll shut up and we'll do something different. So here, dispatch, and dispatch a type. This is a detail success. And our payload is going to look a little different. Our payload is going to be an object, right? It's going to be, we're going to kind of like create this object. So I'm going to give it a characters key, which is going to be the response.data characters array. So I'm building my object, my dispatch object to do what I want. And I'm gonna give it a title key that is gonna be the title that's passed in. So that's what I'm gonna wanna send to my reducer, the title that I'm carrying over and the characters that I'm getting from that API call. So let's go to our reducer and let's create that case. So case, oh, this was called what? Let's import it in. Oh, this is show or detail success. That's what that is. Detail success, always return a copy of state. So here I want to turn loading into false. We're not loading anymore. I can keep that existing state and leave it alone, but I'm gonna say, let's see, okay, let's see, show details is going to be an object that is gonna have characters, which is going to be our action dot payload dot characters, and it's going to have a title, which is going to be action dot payload dot title. So that should populate our state now. When we click on that, we should see that. So let's do Naruto again. We'll click on it and it runs, and I got a detail success. My payload looks right. I got a characters array, the title carried over Naruto. All right, so let's take a look at our next state. Our loading state is false. Our show details, it all lines up. So cool. So now we got to set up some redirects. So let's build a component for the show details. So new file, let's say show details.js, React functional component. We're going to move this down here. And this is going to end up being, we'll just call it show details for now. All right, so here div, we're going to return an H2. It's going to be, let's start getting this stuff out of props. So I'm going to say const. We're going to have a title and a characters array. It's going to be equal to props at the moment. That'll change a little bit. So we have a show title. Then we're going to do characters dot map. And we'll say for each character, we're going to return a div. Yeah, now I'm writing JSX in there. This is going to be cool. We'll make this title real quick. All right, so what do I have in my characters? What do they have? So they have a mal ID. They have a image URL, a name, and a role. So we'll just use those three and the image. So I'm going to give this a key. Mal underscore ID. Then I'm going to create like an H3. This would be character dot. What do we got? Character dot name. I'm going to create an image tag. Give it a wait. First, I want to wrap that in a div. Image source equals character dot image URL and an alt that will be a character dot name And then we'll give it a p tag. And if you wonder where I'm getting this from this object right here that's in the character. I'm just building out a quick, like, little bit of JSX to display it. We're gonna have a role. This will be character dot role. And that's pretty much it. We don't even need to roll. Let's see what it looks like. I think it'll clutter things up, but might end up removing that. So we have that. So we need to redirect to this. Now we're gonna have to go into app and bring in router. So app.js, let's go to index first and implement it. Import browser router as router from React router DOM. Let's come in here. This will be router. Place that up there, save that. It shouldn't break yet. Let's make sure, refresh, nothing broke. Everything's still good. Let's go into app. Let's start making our route. I want to keep that search form up. But I think I want to, we're going to route that component. So search form this. Okay, let's try something different here. We're gonna bring in route. It's gonna come from React router DOM. Out and switch. Router DOM. Let's declare a switch first. Let's just erase this. I'm gonna declare my first route. First route is going to be a path equal to, call it slash details. This will be our details component. So in here is going to be our show details component. I'm gonna make another route.
You have a
Let's
typo in that path.
Oh, I do. Good call. It's set tails. All right. So second route, I'm gonna try and do this an easy way. I'm gonna make this, this path is gonna be slash. And we're gonna make this an exact path. My dog's deciding to lose his mind all of a sudden in the background. All right, and I'm gonna pass this to search form. Actually, I wonder if I could do it with a fragment. Let's try that. Experimentation. Search form. And all of this stuff right here. I'm gonna try and pass up into that. See, oh. See if it breaks. Refresh, we're on slash. Ooh, we got doubles. I gotta erase one. All right. Hey, look at that. Fragment for the win. Was able to do it with a single route. All right, so now I'm gonna go back into my show details. Or actually, no, wait, I need my anime show card where I got this on click method where I'm hitting this. I'm gonna bring in the use history method from React router DOM. All right, let's come on here. We'll say const, we'll destructure the push method out of it. Here's history. And then down here, after this happens, I'm going to push to details. All right, and that should render my show details card, which right now has nothing because we have to connect it to Redux. Import connect. So if you haven't noticed yet, connect happens quite often. Whenever you need that state, yep, connect. Or if you have to dispatch something. So here I'm not dispatching anything. I just got state. So let's build our map state function. Const map state equals that. It's going to have some state. We're going to return. Let's see, what do we want? Out of props, we're going to call this details. So that would make this props dot details. So props of details, we know what our state's going to kind of look like. So I'm going to say state dot, go to our reducer and be state dot show details. Oh, I'm done with that one. State dot show details. So state dot show details, if we look at our reducer, has a characters key and a title key. So if we come into our component, we set that to details. So props.details, characters key, title key. That matches up, right? So this should run with no problems. Although every time I do something like this without console logging or checking first, it breaks. So let's see if we get lucky. So let's save that. We'll refresh. Let's go Dragon. This time we'll click on Dragon Ball GT and it blew up. Yep. Cannot read property title of props.details. All right, so let's console log. The props. So I missed something somewhere. So let's refresh this. I need to go back and start again because I'm probably lost my state. Let's see what that is. Where's my console log? All right, details is undefined. Oh, what do I do? That's not the right key. That makes sense. I think I got auto corrected by the capital S. Yes. All right. Hey, fixed it. It's always a typo. So now we can run through our app and it looks like it's all going to work. Anybody got an anime series they want me to type in?
One Piece.
One Piece? I think I spelled that right. One Piece. Any specific, there's only One Piece movie, One Piece film gold. We got any with more than one episode? Let's scroll down a little bit here. Now they all look like they just have one episode. So let's click on, I don't know, One Piece movie 4. Yeah, let's click on that. So we click on this. And there we go. You can see that our title carried over like we planned. And now we have our character names, our images, and their role. Which looks like the role's always main. But you can see, yeah, we have fun. We got some cool functionality. We built quite the app. Anybody got any questions on anything that we covered? Any blockers? Anything crazy? Anything you think might trip you up that we need to go over?
You mentioned thunk in the beginning and you had that double function,
Mm-hmm.
but later I think you called thunk from React Redux. Is that a Redux method?
No, it's not a Redux. Oh, I can't even talk. It's not a React Redux method. Apply middleware is, but thunk is only called one time. So it's brought in here and then inserted into our middleware. And after that, it's never brought in anywhere else. Is there somewhere else where I maybe said that and didn't do it? Maybe.
No, I think that's where it came in. So in apply middleware, that's where you initialize thunk.
Yep. So basically when we run our store, our first argument's the reducer. The second argument is the middleware. And we use apply middleware that comes from Redux. And I put my first argument is thunk. And thunk is like that, I don't know, the best analogy I got is like a bouncer at a nightclub, kind of situation. So if I called dispatch like through my Redux actions, if I just called dispatch with an object, it would pass by thunk and go straight to the reducer because it was just an object. But what thunk looks for a return of a function. So when we write this function is basically saying like const sum action equals a fat arrow function. That's just a regular JavaScript function, right? And then we're going to return another function that has dispatch. And this is where we're going to do like some, dispatch callback method that's going to return our eventual object. This is like the long way of writing it out. This is the really shorthand way, just to chain the fat arrows together.
Okay, but thunk is the name you gave it, I guess.
Yeah. So thunk is they call it a thunk function or an asynchronous Redux function. And if you look at the reason why it's called thunk is it literally comes from Redux thunk. I think that actually thunk is a technical term. I thunk. I don't think that's just a made up phrase. What is a thunk? JavaScript. It is a subroutine used to inject an additional calculation into another subroutine. There's your technical definition of thunk. So
Okay.
it's a real thing. Which makes sense. So, if you look at our action, if we look here, this action is a subroutine of our Redux store. It's a function. And then it's used to inject an additional calculation into another subroutine. So if we look back over here, the one it's injecting it into is the one that's inside. This is what it's injecting is dispatch. And it's putting it down into here. So that definition makes sense. I'm always about that Google foo, man. It'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
So any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, good luck this weekend, everybody. I'm going to kill this session and get the recording posted in the channel. And I'm sure you all do great. We'll see you on the other side on Monday.
Sweet. Thank you, Chris.
Thank
No
you.
problem. Have a good one.